Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
There's a truism in politics. Those places that can't get worse don't, they get better. And those places that can't get better don't, they get worse. Chile has been so good to me.
Okay.
Chile has probably been the best jurisdiction in the world to me relative to capital in, capital out. And Chile has prospered so mightily with their halting attempts at free markets that it surprises me that the Chilean electorate is expressing as much stupidity as they are. I'm sure that there will be a swing away from sanity in Chile. And I'm sure, too, that there will ultimately be a swing back to sanity in Chile. But it may take 5 or 6 years. Peru's getting worse, too. Peru's had 10 years of prosperity. 12 years of prosperity. I guess they figure that's enough. I guess they figure that what they're going to do is tax their way back to the Stone Age. Rough place. It really, truly is a rough place. Their national sport is stealing from foreigners. They've had, 7 sovereign defaults? The fact that Argentina could sell a 50-year bond, I guess it was a 100-year bond, just tells me how dumb bond buyers are these days. By the time that bond matures, the Argentines will have defaulted on it 5 times. What one needs to do is, if one's a speculator, one needs to speculate in Argentina after they deliver spectacularly bad news. They seem to do that every 2 or 3 years, so you don't have to wait long.
Sure.
The idea that you would invest in Argentina when it feels comfortable to you is setting yourself up for disappointment.
Interesting.
It's a very, very tough place. You know that many people don't know this. Argentina had a higher GDP per capita than Canada did in 1946, coming out of World War II. Okay. It took extraordinary talent to bankrupt that country. The Peronistas, which are the Latin equivalent of your NDP, exhibited almost a masterclass in how to ruin a prosperous society. But they did it. When the populace sees a goose that lays golden eggs, after a while they get tired of the eggs and they want to eat the goose.
Sure.
Doug Casey famously says it's bad enough as a taxpayer to be regarded as a milk cow. You have to be concerned when the government begins to regard you as beef. It's a very different proposition. And I think that unfortunately Chile is beginning to look at extractive industries as beef rather than milk. This is common. You weren't around for it, but in the decade of the 70s, which was a great decade for resources, lots of frontier and emerging markets did better than they had in previous times. And they uniformly squandered the opportunity by nationalizing their resource industries and running them into the ground, only to have to privatize them in 1990. Folks that look like you and I equate political risk with places where people don't look like you and I. Specifically, people who look like you and I believe that money stolen from us by the legislature in English, according to the rule of law, is somehow less gone. I guarantee you that in Canada, you have seen the pre-election budget, which is the spend budget. Here, we buy your votes with your money. Yeah. After the election, we're going to see the pay budget, which is where envy comes in. Yeah. And you're going to see marginal tax rates in Canada that look Peruvian. So when you're talking about political risk, understand that political risk looks like you and me too. White people can steal from you in English according to the rule of law with at least equal proficiency than third world despots.
The man that you just saw is one of my favorite investors on the world. His name is Rick Rule. Rick Rule is not only a standout man regarding the natural resources investing world, but also is a very wise man, also a very trustworthy man, is actually very respected, not only for his work, that is pretty outstanding, but also because he's a pretty outstanding man. So he always speaks his mind and he's very well spoken, as you might notice. And he has pretty interesting ideas that I want to discuss today. First, he discussed how is the mindset of the nations that manage natural resources, and usually this provokes some sort of the high levels, the politician side, and sometimes provokes some authoritarian prop. And what ends up happening is they raise taxes, they hand out money to people in order to gain some power, and after that destroy the whole thing. And that happens. They were speaking about that on the 70s, where natural resources price, starting by oil, went way down, and after some nationalization and such, basically pretty much destroy the whole thing back then. And that happens all over again, all over again, all over again on many parts of the world. And that's basically what happens here in Venezuela. What happened back then in Venezuela, that's why we have the main reason that we have this, this recession that lasted a decade, on the decade ago here in Venezuela. And of course, he also is talking about, and this is the main part of the clip that I just put for you to see. Countries that they can get better, they don't. They get worse. And countries that can get worse, they don't. They get better. Hopefully, this is the case for Venezuela. This is a country that by every metric, by any sentiment, market sentiment, by 2017, 2018, this is a country that cannot cannot get worse. And everyone thought that it's gonna keep getting worse. And it didn't happen. It got better. And hopefully it's gonna get way better in the future, especially speculating with this big bull commodities super cycle that, as you know, Venezuela is oil rich, and oil is gonna lead the charge on these natural resources bull run they're gonna have probably on the next decade or so. After that, he also mentions Chile. He mentions on copper, of course, as you might know, in case you don't, Chile is very rich on copper. And in case you don't know, copper is known also as the Dr. Copper, because every time the economy overall grows, the price of copper is going to grow as well. In Chile is a powerhouse regarding copper export. Although at the same time, like Rick Rule mentioned, and I agree, that Chilean electorate has been very stupid, and I have to say it, so I'm sorry by my Chilean friends, that they're going to pay for it on the next few years. Same thing about Peru. Also, Peru is a very rich, not as rich, but it's a rich natural resources nation, and they're going to pay for their bad decisions as well. As Venezuelans, we also pay for our own bad decisions. And but lastly, and this is now this part goes from people, Western nations, U.S., Canada, Australia, you name it, is that when he mentions, Rick Rule, that when we think about geopolitical risk or the risk of any given nation, we think on these countries where, they are brown countries, to call it like that. Some Latin American countries, some African countries, some Asian countries, where people, they don't look Caucasian. They are the despots. They are the authoritarians. They're gonna screw everything up, and they're gonna become communists or nationalized or something, and they're gonna destroy the whole thing. But also that can happen in any given country on a Western nation. Apparently, it's happening in Canada. It might happen in the US. US has a very high tax rate. Can happen on the EU as well. And also, you have to take into account this new paradigm, the politicians all over the world against climate change, and basically they want to cure the climate change by communism, implementing some new form of communism, but with solar panels and such that are proven to be not profitable and unworthy on big investment. Probably the best investment regarding the clean energy will be uranium, because you can generate nuclear power plants with uranium. By one hand, is clean energy, and by the other hand, is very effective energy for all over the world in order to generate electricity and such. And of course, when bad things happen with nuclear power plants, everyone knows it, but it's a black swan event when it does happen, and I hope it doesn't happen again, but likely it's gonna happen a couple of times in the future. The main takeaway here is be aware of politicians and be aware that when the status quo of any given nation can change just like that. Also mentioned Argentina, that is quite a basket case of its own. But the main takeaway here is, just be aware that a country that you see very pretty, very thriving today, on the present day, it might not be the case in the future, and countries that weren't thriving, to say the least, may thrive in the future. And that's why I love this contrarian mindset approach, not only about investing, but just about life itself, is try to get things where cheap, try to get ahead in time, and you maybe are going to find some hidden gems, some value, not only in investing, but life overall. Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.